All right, have at it, Jason.
Thanks, Jessica. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see everyone today all together, virtually as it is. Um, so I'm here as well as Cindy Johnson and Colleen McKay. And if you've been coming to the IBICA conference for any of the last 3 years, actually longer than that, we've been talking about this research project that we've been doing. And as we've migrated through those 3 years of research we were doing, we've been giving updates at the conference as to how that research is going and what the purpose of it is. Excuse me. So today, super excited. We're finished with the research. The project is done. And so we're going to talk about what we found out with our research on the ABI Clubhouse model. So just a little kind of acknowledgement here. Our funder, Joe Beth was on earlier, is the Virginia Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services and the Commonwealth Neurotrauma Initiative. They funded this 3-year, $450,000 research project on the impact and effectiveness of the ABI Clubhouse model, both on an individual level, on individuals who are attending a clubhouse, and also on a more macro level. This is something that IBICA and every brain injury clubhouse has kind of been yearning to do for really since our existence. Is we've known anyone who steps foot into a brain injury clubhouse knows the impact that it has on individuals who attend. But what we've never had with brain injury clubhouses is actually university-sponsored research that has actually said this is what actually occurs. This is how brain injury clubhouses function, and this is how they impact the people that are attending. Well, we have that now, and we're really excited to share some of the results with you today. Hopefully I can change my slides. There we go. Okay. Just a little quick shout out to our main collaborators on this, Community Brain Injury Services, which operates the Mill House and the Denby House, served as the lead investigator. We were the Virginia-based organization that applied for this money from the Commonwealth of Virginia. IBICA was a partner in this clubhouse. Our two main research partners were Virginia Commonwealth University under the direction of Ron Seal, and the University of Massachusetts Medical School under the direction of Colleen McKay. And then again, just a special thank you to, we had 8 clubhouses who served as our test sites for this research. We had our 5 Virginia clubhouses and then 3 non-Virginia clubhouses participate in this project. And these clubhouses worked long and hard over these 3 years to put in place the 2 interventions that we were studying throughout this project. So what did this project seek to do? Well, we had 2 main goals that we wanted to accomplish through this project. One is we wanted to look at clubhouses from a macro lens. And I'd be able to identify kind of the successful ingredients, if you will, of what exactly are ABI clubhouses? How are they constructed? How do they function? How do they operate? What services do they provide? And who are they serving? And what kind of outcomes are they getting for those individuals that they serve? So this is something that mental health clubhouses have been gathering for many, many years now. And we already knew there was a tool out there to gather it called the Clubhouse Profile Questionnaire, which is short, CPQ is for short. So what we want to do with that CPQ is to take it, knowing that brain injury clubhouses have many similarities to mental health clubhouses, but also there's some differences because of the population that we serve. So we want to take that CPQ, that instrument that's already been collecting that data from mental health clubhouses, and tweak it and alter it to make it an effective tool to collect data at a brain injury clubhouse. And so we've done that. And Colleen, here in a second, is going to share some of the results of what we've found from that. The second part of our study is we wanted to look at it from a micro level. So a person who attends a clubhouse, a survivor of a brain injury, a member of a clubhouse, what does that do for them? So we wanted to look at the impact of attending on neurobehavioral functioning. Our hypothesis was that attending a clubhouse will improve a person's independence, their quality of life, because that's what we've seen in our ABI clubhouses. So we wanted to test that hypothesis using a research tool that I won't say we developed, but we kind of put three research tools together: the MPAI, the SAM, and the CDC Healthy Measures. This is a very large research tool. It took an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes longer to administer it to every person that we administered it to during the survey. So it was very comprehensive and allowed us to look at Clubhouse membership and attendance at a Clubhouse on a myriad number of levels. So after Colleen presents her results on the CPQ, I'm going to go back to that and give you the results of the VCU part of the study. Okay, so Colleen, if you're around, I'm going to let you kind of take it over from here to talk about the CPQ. I know you're around because we've talked earlier.
Thanks, Jason. Hi, everybody. As Jason mentioned, the CPQ, or the Clubhouse Profile Questionnaire, has been in use in the mental health clubhouses for a long time. And we wanted to develop something that the brain injury clubhouses could also use. So as you saw the list of the 8 clubs, I also just want to give them a big shout out or thank you, because those eight clubhouses, or there was actually a 9th one, spent a lot of time testing and using the CPQ and letting me know like what's going to work for a brain injury clubhouse, what isn't, what are the other pieces of data that need to be collected to make it work for your clubhouses. Jason, if you could go to the next one, please. So it's important to remember the CPQ looks at the clubhouse at a program level rather than at the individual member level. So we're really talking about things that happen as a program, whether it's things that happen during the work order day, or how many members are served, or, how many members participate in the average daily attendance, things like that. So there's nothing in the CPQ about any individual member. But what it does do is it gives us a way to describe what clubhouses are, the types of people who are part of the membership, the types of activities that occur during the work order day, funding and governance structures, things like that. So you'll see in the next batch of slides, here we have Virginia and then the 3 other states, Florida, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. We have them kind of separated out. And you'll see in many cases, things still look very similar depending on which state the clubhouses were located in. But there are some differences too. And those really help us begin to understand how some of the funding structures or the way the mechanisms that clubhouses are implemented in different states can have an impact on programs. The information is also useful if you think about places where people are thinking about starting a new clubhouse. This kind of information can be really helpful to them as well, thinking about, how many staff should we have? What kind of budget do we need? Do we need a big budget? Do we need a small budget? What are the types of services we should be providing? So here you can see, and I'm not going to read through the entire slides. It sounds like they'll be up on the Google Drive. But you can see, most of your clubhouses, they're not brand new. They've been around for a while now, anywhere from 5 to 20 years. Most of the clubhouses have an advisory board, and usually either we think about clubhouses having an auspice or parent agency or being a freestanding program. And in this case, the 7 of the 8 brain injury clubhouses had an auspice agency. So when a clubhouse has an auspice agency, they typically have an advisory board rather than an independent board of directors. The clubhouse standards, all of the clubs say they try to meet the IBICA standards. I think you'll probably hear later. One of the things I think in going through this process with the CPQ, it kind of triggered a look at the existing brain injury clubhouse standards, and then some discussion and revision of those as we went along during the project. Annual budgets vary widely. That's not uncommon with clubhouses in general. A lot of that has to do with how long a clubhouse has been open, where it's located, what the funds can be used for, reimbursement funding structures in a particular state. And then we do a cost per year and a cost per day. And these are very simple calculations based on your clubhouse's annual budgets and either your active membership for the cost per year or your average daily attendance for the cost per day. And these really shouldn't be used for rate setting purposes, but more just to get a sense of the general costs of a clubhouse. It also allows us, when I'm looking at data, or Clubhouse International is looking at data, to get a better understanding of what it costs to operate a clubhouse in whether it's different regions or different states within the United States, or different countries around the world. The mental health clubhouses are located in 33 different countries. So that's fine, Jason.
Okay.
Keep going. So staff, you can stay there. That's good.
Sorry, I thought I hit 2 there by accident.
No. So you can see the clubhouses in Virginia, a little smaller, fewer staff, so about 4 full-time staff. The other states closer to 8, but once again, there's variability, with one of the clubhouses being a bit bigger than the others. There's also some staff that identify themselves as consumers, in addition to being staff. Those are fairly small percentages, but that's also pretty typical of what we would see in a mental health clubhouse. And then the active members, so the member to staff ratio, so about 10 to 11 active members to 1 full-time staff in Virginia, and about 7 to 1 outside of Virginia. And these are about half of what we would see in a mental health clubhouse. So in a mental health clubhouse, it would be 18 or 19 active members to 1 full-time staff. One of the first conferences that I ever attended with Jason and Cindy, some of the audience, that was one of the questions that the administrators wanted to know in the audience, because I think they were trying to understand the differences between operating a brain injury clubhouse and operating a mental health clubhouse. And that is definitely one of the key differences that we see, is that because of the populations that are being served, a brain injury clubhouse is kind of more staff intensive than a mental health clubhouse might be. And then the different funding sources in the CPQ, we break this down into some broader, more detailed categories, but we have it kind of rolled up together for you here. So in Virginia, the majority of funding comes from the state or a local government source, whereas in the other 3 states, that's not the case. So outside of Virginia, funding comes from vocational rehab, Medicaid waivers, fee-for-service, workers' compensation. And the other area is through fundraising. So whether that's, having getting a grant, or having a gift from a foundation, or the clubhouse doing a fundraising campaign. And you can see that very last corner on the right-hand side, one of the clubs is doing a lot around fundraising and campaigns or grants to support their clubhouse program. Then we asked we ask a lot of details about the membership, not individual members. Things like how old members are on average, how long they've been members of the Clubhouse. One of the things that we added for the brain injury version of the CPQ is a cause of injury. So you can see here for the majority of members, there's either vehicle accidents, so 35 to 40% of memberships, followed by stroke, about a quarter of the membership. Those are the two biggest causes of injury among the active memberships. And you can see here, just regardless of which state we're looking at here, these look very similar. And then the same thing for length of injury. Once again, these look very similar. And I think it's important to note here how long post-injury some members are, and that clubhouses have been supporting people for a long time or a long time post-injury. This isn't everyone just coming out of the hospital or some sort of intensive rehabilitation necessarily. And then the primary diagnosis, and this is whether it's a traumatic or non-traumatic brain injury. And you can see outside of Virginia, there are more members who have experienced a traumatic brain injury. Once again, some of that is tied to the funding mechanisms and the structures for how the clubhouses are set up to operate in a given state. And then transportation to the clubhouse. And you can see there's some real variability between Virginia and the other states here, although many members rely on some sort of paratransit or disability transportation. Most clubhouses, and certainly not in Virginia, they don't really have a clubhouse van that could be used to transport members to the clubhouse. Whereas if you were part of a mental health clubhouse, particularly one in a rural location, there probably would be a clubhouse van that's used for transporting members to and from the club.
So, Colleen, I can kind of take it from here if that's okay, unless you have anything else to add.
No, because I'm assuming we have some time for questions if people have questions later. And certainly tomorrow we'll be talking a lot more about the CPQ. So if people have questions about anything specific, we can try to address them there.
Thanks, Colleen. And yes, I wanted to hit on that with this slide. And I know this has been talked about, but we have 2 sessions tomorrow designed to train all of our IBICA member clubhouses on how to do the CPQ. And I just want to encourage everyone that the CPQ that we've developed, this brain injury specific CPQ, IBICA is contracted with Colleen and UMass Medical School to do an annual version of this this year, and hopefully for annual years coming on following this, so we can continue to generate this large and ever-growing data set of the programmatic features of our brain injury clubhouses. Now, I'm not going to lie, there is a learning curve to get knowing and understanding how to input the data onto the CPQ. But what you get out of it is not only your clubhouse contributing to that growing data set, but you also get your own individualized clubhouse data set that you can use to take to funders, for grants and other purposes that'll be very helpful for your own clubhouse as well, to look at it in this detailed, data-driven manner. So now I'm going to talk about our second research objective, which is, again, to look at it and look at how clubhouses impact individuals who attend them. on their safety, judgment, independence, physical, mental health. We looked at it, how a clubhouse potentially impacts individuals on a number of levels. So in total, in our 3-year research window that we had, we did this intervention on a total of 76 new ABI clubhouse members. Well, you first may ask yourself, only 76? What about the hundreds of members that are already at clubhouses already? Well, we couldn't, and for the purpose of this research, we couldn't study those clubhouse members that were already in Clubhouse because the intervention of Clubhouse, if you will, had already been in the process of being administered. We could only look at and get a baseline membership for new people who were just starting to attend Clubhouse during the intake process. And then we followed up with that person and did the same intervention, the same survey, 6 to 9 months post. And through that process, we were able to identify the changes that we observed with them. So first of all, just in the baseline data, we were able to get some great demographic information. Again, in the CPQ, we had a lot of demographic information as well. But this demographic data set, if you will, is just on the 76 individuals that were coming into these 8 Clubhouse test sites during the research. You can see kind of the gender breakdown. Not too surprising that it's a male-dominated gender breakdown. Brain injury is a male-dominated disability. You can see the age range there, a pretty comprehensive age range. Clubhouses serve individuals 18 and over, and we really see that reflected in the age range that we're serving that we saw in this data set. I thought one of the more compelling things was our analysis of race and ethnicity. What we're able to see is that Clubhouses did a pretty good job in serving the demographic breakup of their community, except in one area. You see there's a very low percentage there. I think it's 3%. No, it's actually 1% on the Hispanic and Latino community. We saw consistently that we were underserving the Hispanic Latino community. And I think that's a lesson for all ABI clubhouses moving forward, is how we can make sure that we're engaging that growing community across the United States. Whether that be hiring individuals that speak Spanish, translating a lot of our materials into Spanish, and doing specific outreach to make sure that we're better engaging that community than we're currently doing. We also looked at things like education level. Again, Colleen and the CPQ talked about etiology and how people get their brain injuries. We looked at it with this data set as well. Again, very consistent with the CPQ data. You know, lots of folks in motor vehicle accidents, strokes, aneurysms. We broke things down a little bit differently in how we identified that data in etiology than we did in the CPQ. But generally, you know, we're seeing folks with a variety of TBI and ABIs. I thought it was very, very interesting to look at the average time since injury for a new person, 13 years. So clubhouses, and again, this is kind of what we know, clubhouses are generally not serving folks that are newly injured. You know, you can see we had a couple folks that came in, you know, within under a year after their brain injury. But on average, we're serving folks that have had their brain injury a number of years ago. And they're coming in to attend the clubhouse because they still have some unmet needs that prohibit their full independence, community reintegration, and just their feelings of productivity is why they're trying to access the clubhouse. Okay, so this slide, and I know there's a lot of numbers on there, really was really impactful to us. We asked folks during the baseline to identify the total number of other medical conditions, mental health disorders, and functional impairments they had in addition to their brain injury. Because what do we know about brain injury? Brain injury is not an incident that happens to you. It's a chronic health condition. So on average, you can see kind of a nice little bell curve if you kind of follow that around a little bit. But the average number of other chronic health conditions, functional impairments that were reported was 8. You can see that at the far end of the chart that we had 3 people report that they had 17 or 18 other medical conditions, mental health disorders, or functional impairments. So what this is telling us is that folks that are accessing our clubhouses have extremely complex medical and mental health conditions. And again, when we want to look at how we put this research out to folks, when we put this out to individuals who might be interested in funding clubhouses, we call them payers. This is something that when we, if you're an insurance company and you see someone with this number of other chronic conditions, that person is probably costing the insurance company a lot of money. So looking at an intervention, and we'll look at the results here in a section, that might mitigate some of those chronic health conditions, is going to be pretty darn important to you. So what were some of those chronic health conditions? You can see the top 3 there: depression, seizure disorder, sleep-wake issues were the top 3 in that. I'd also like to note down at the bottom, other. So there's a whole bunch of other medical conditions that we didn't specify in this, that folks said, hey, yeah, I have one of those issues. I think one of the big things that we realize is anxiety is pretty commonplace after brain injury, and we did not put kind of the anxiety conditions on our list. And I think that's one of the things if we had to go back and do it all over again, we probably would put that up on the list as one of the set aside other health conditions to look at. This is looking at self-reported functional impairments of folks when they're coming in. Again, I don't think this should be surprising to everyone that folks are reporting moderate to severe interference on a variety of cognitive issues. We know memory is an issue for brain injury. We know things like attention, concentration, some of your other executive functioning skills are significantly impacted. And that is what our data is showing here now, is that folks that are accessing our services. And again, this is not just that someone's saying, yeah, I got a little problem with my memory. This is someone that's reporting that they have moderate or severe interference on daily activities as a result of their memory. And you can see kind of on down the list some of the, auditory and vision problems that come, communication and language issues. Again, commonplace functional impairments that occur after a brain injury. Okay, so this is kind of our moneymaker slide, if you will. This summarizes we looked at the baseline data, and this summarized the change that occurred between the baseline data and the follow-up data 6 to 9 months post. And I'm going to go through these. I just kind of had it highlighted on the slide here. We're going to go through kind of the ones that we saw statistically significant improvements in. So, number 1, on our safety assessments, we saw statistically significant improved safety-related behaviors and improved safety risk factors in 12 different areas. Things like folks were noting significantly improvement judgment, significantly improvement in following through on recommendations, whether that be from healthcare recommendations or just recommendations that they have from others that they weren't doing prior to attending the clubhouse that now they are doing. Improved ability to carry out daily activities. What does the collective impact of all this tell us? That attending a clubhouse is going to result in reduced injuries. If people are now using safety aids, walkers, canes, adaptive equipment that they weren't using before, they're going to be falling less. If they're avoiding dangerous activities that they weren't doing before because of some of the services that they're being provided to at the clubhouse, It's going to see a reduced injuries, means a reduced need for healthcare service, and also a reduction in professional/family caregiver supervision that needs to occur for folks. Second big area we saw substantial change in, and I think this is a huge one again for funders, insurance companies, state, local, and federal government. We saw a substantial reduction in individuals' hospitalization risk factors through our study. And including a reduction in their actual number of emergency room visits and acute hospitalizations as a result of coming to Clubhouse. And that's a result of the Clubhouse helping to, do some of those safety things, but also helping members to manage medical conditions, their medication, and some of their functional impairments that result from brain injury. And again, if you're an insurance company, is this something that's going to be meaningful to you? Yes, it's going to be super meaningful to you. And if you look at this and from a broad scale perspective, insurance companies, Medicaid, Medicare, generally don't fund Clubhouse services. But if we're able to show them that, hey, this can save you a lot of money by not having to pay for these costly hospitalization visits, emergency room visits, that's something that insurance companies might in the future look at paying for their participants to attend Clubhouses. So I've added a couple member stories in their own words to kind of really put a face on how some of these things are impacted on an individual. So this is Jerry here, and hopefully the technology works here. It's my first time doing an embedded video on a PowerPoint presentation on Zoom. And Jerry's going to talk about the improved coordination of medical services that he got after coming to the Clubhouse and how that led for Jerry a reduction in the number of times he was going to the hospital.
Jason, we can't hear him.
Hold on. Jessica, my IT tech help person, do you have is there a reason why we're not able to hear Jerry? I can hear him on my computer.
No, I think it's because it's playing through PowerPoint. Give us, can you go to the next one and then we'll see, because I think Jerry was actually pretty quiet.
Okay. If you stop sharing, you can restart it and share your computer sound.
Okay.
Like when you share your computer sound, there's like a little box in the bottom. When you share your screen, there's a little box, check mark box that you'll check. Yep. It's at the bottom, I want to say left, yes. And it says share computer sound and click on that.
Thank you, Gloria. All right, let's try this again, everyone. And if someone could, Gloria, I see you there. So if you can give me a thumbs up that you're hearing it, that would appreciate.
We can hear it.
I'm Jerry.
Okay.
I'm a member at Dimmy House in Newport News, Virginia. 7 years, 6 years.
Hi.
It's Africa. I came back to Dimmy House after COVID. And got picked on more days and stuff. And they teach me things that I want to learn. I mean, this place here is better than the school because they learn me more than the school. Since I've been coming here, I've been going to the emergency room less.
When was the last time you went to the emergency room?
I don't know. About a year ago, I think I let God do all things. Been back there about a year less. I don't know, but I mean, I don't go there, you know. When I started coming here, I had a better, I learned more about doctors, staff, and doctors. Now I got more doctors, more advocate, and more. Now I got doctors, staff, coordination, family are here to help me. And now they're like family to me. I got the support I need. So much I can say about the Dimmy House. It's awesome to be here. Goodbye.
So, thank you, Jerry, for sharing your story. And we got a couple other stories, but just to highlight kind of what Jerry said there is prior to coming to the clubhouse, Jerry was going to the hospital probably on a monthly basis for various ailments. But because he came to the clubhouse, as he talked about, he was able to get access to better coordination of services. You know, us communicating and working with a primary care physician to make sure that he got access to proper preventative care. And so now he's not seeking his medical care at the hospital kind of on an emergency basis. He's being proactive about it and getting that care out in the community. And you know, the other thing I think that Jerry really kind of hits home there is just the trust level that develops between Clubhouse staff and our members, that Jerry has a trust in us to help him through that process.
I'm Jerry.
Sorry. One of the other things that we found with this in our research is that folks showed a substantial reduced risk of depression after attending the clubhouse, and also a reduction in risk for developing other medical conditions and improved management of those conditions. So I have Allison here, who's one of our members at the Mill House, and she's going to talk about how attending the Mill House affected her mental health and her depression.
Hi, my name is Allison Rhodes. I am a member of the Mill House. My brain injury is due to having an AVM and epilepsy. Growing up with these medical conditions made it hard to go through school, develop friendships, and even be around some other adults who knew nothing about how to handle seizures and help me. Before attending the Mill House, I got so depressed that I didn't want to take my medications because I saw others doing things that I couldn't. Since attending the Mill House, my mood and energy has improved. Attending the Mill House has made me feel more comfortable and like I can fit in with everyone. I have also been given the opportunity to speak to others about my injury and share my personal story at our caregiver appreciation event.
And Allison, thank you so much for sharing your story on how attending a clubhouse has helped your mental health. And again, what we know about coming to a clubhouse is community, having meaningful, productive activity where you're wanted, needed, and valued every day, and having an understanding of your disability and other people have gone through your disability is incredibly important for someone's mental health. And that's what this research validated, is that having access to all those things, we saw a significant reduction in folks' depression from attending the clubhouse. And lastly, I have one more video, and I'm going to pop to in a second. But the fourth thing that we found in our research is that folks had improved independence on both functional abilities and everyday living activities. So go back to kind of the main functional abilities that folks were showing significant impairment with upon entering the clubhouse. Well, we found significant improvement in their abilities in things like attention, initiation, and memory, the very things that they're reporting significant impairment in. We also saw significant improvement in participation in both home and community activities, including independent living and homemaking. So some of the adaptive skills that are learned at the clubhouse, where people are taking those skills home with them and incorporating them into their home lives to be more independent in their home lives. So I have Terrence.
Hi, my name is.
Sorry. Still figuring out how to do those video slides. So I have Terrence here, who's going to talk about how attending the clubhouse improved his functional abilities.
Hi, my name is Terrence Holly. In 2012, I became very depressed and overdosed on pills. It is very hard for me to verbally communicate, so Daisha Lockett will be speaking on my behalf. She is my residential sponsor and helps me with certain ADLs that I still need help with, like putting on my socks and shoes. Hello, I'm Daisha Lockett. When I first came to Denby House, I used to come with an aide who would help me with all of my ADLs as far as wiping, bathing, eating, toileting, etc. I have been coming to the Denby House for a little over 4 years, and I have found it quite rewarding. While at the Denby House, I learned how to do my ADLs with the help of staff here and their encouragement. At first, I couldn't stand up and toilet myself in the restroom, or I couldn't eat by myself, but they ordered me special utensils, and now I'm able to use a regular spoon and fork. Even though their bathrooms meet ADA requirements, it is still hard at times for me to transfer from the bathroom rails to the toilet. I pretty much now have it down packed to a science. I learned better cooking skills while at the Denby House. I learned computer skills that I now use on a daily basis, and I am getting stronger physically, as now I can walk a few steps and I have better balance, even though I'm in a wheelchair. My case manager here at the clubhouse encourages me to exercise at the Denby House while I have free times. Even though communication is still hard for me at times, I learned how to get my needs and wants met without threatening unwanted behaviors. And now I attend the Denby House 5 days a week without an aide.
So Terrence, thank you so much for sharing your story with us as well. And how impactful it is to attend a clubhouse program and be able to get back the independence that Terrence has gotten back. He no longer needs an aide to help him with bathroom issues and eating. And that is a huge improvement in Terrence's quality of life and what he's able to do for himself independently again. And again, I go back to look at kind of the purpose of this study is to, to talk to funders who might want to fund brain injury clubhouses. But Terrence, his insurance company does not need to pay for an aide to be with him near as much now because of the functional improvements that he's shown and by attending the clubhouse. So again, this is something that funders are going to want to like to see about why they might want to invest and fund a brain injury clubhouse.
Hi,
And our last research finding, so on that slide in the beginning that showed everything, you saw the two things that we didn't see any movement on were improvements in mental physical health overall. Okay, so while you might look at that and say, well, that's not great, we went a step further and we asked members to tell us how many days is your physical and mental health restricting your ability to do your daily activities. So when folks, before they began the clubhouse, they were reporting every month that a full week, 7 days, they had significant restriction in their daily activities due to poor physical or mental health. 6 to 9 months later, that same group of people are now reporting collectively only 3 days a month. That's huge. That's on average, folks got back an extra 4 days a month where their physical and mental health were not having significant, not putting significant restrictions on their daily activities. And what do we know about clubhouses? Folks don't go to Clubhouse to get physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, medical rehab. That's not what clubhouses are for. What do clubhouses help people to do? They help them develop adaptive skills. So again, we didn't necessarily change someone's physical health by coming to the clubhouse, but we improved their ability to adapt to some of their physical health conditions so that their physical health didn't restrict and impact their ability to carry on with their life. That's huge. When we started this research, this was the first research in literally probably over 20 years of any kind on ABI clubhouses. And what we hoped this research project would do was A, show the results that we found, but also be a spur for other researchers, universities, to further study brain injury clubhouses. Some of the things that we saw that we really want to look at maybe in the future is looking at kind of the dose duration impacts of clubhouse participation. So we looked at, folks when they came in and we looked at how they were doing 6 to 9 months later. We know folks attend clubhouses for many years. Clubhouse by its nature is lifelong membership. So how does that impact a clubhouse look as they get past 6 to 9 months, year, 2 year? Do they continue to show improvements? Do they plateau? That was information that we really like to know. We really like to define the cost effectiveness of clubhouse services. We got a little good data here on how much it costs to run clubhouses and some of the potential cost savings that come with clubhouses from the impacts that clubhouse intervention makes on folks. Really like to have a control study where we look at the medical costs of folks that are in clubhouse versus maybe a control group of individuals with brain injury that don't have access to clubhouse services. And there's some other things that we'd like to look at in the future, the impact of quality assurance efforts and how clubhouses in fact impact family and caregiver burden, and as well as a variety of vocational return to work services that many clubhouses offer. And lastly, before I turn this over to Cindy to kind of summarize everything and talk about the real importance of this research, we have 3 main deliverables that are coming out. This research is going to be published in 2 preeminent brain injury research journals. Colleen and I say mainly Colleen, just resubmitted our second edit on the CPQ data to the Journal of Brain Injury, and we are working on our submission for the VCU data, the impact on neurobehavioral functioning, which is going to be submitted to the Journal of Head Trauma Rehabilitation. And lastly, I put in the chat feature at the beginning a link to our public policy brief that we developed. So anyone who's read research articles in research journals before know that unless you're a researcher, it kind of hurts your head to read all that information because it's not really written for the layperson. So what we did is we took all the information that we gathered, we put in a public policy brief that is designed for the layperson. And when I say layperson, I mean anyone out in the community, a survivor, a family member, an elected official, that we put together one paper that not only describes brain injury a little bit, but describes brain injury clubhouses and describes the impact of our research that we found on this. And that link is on there. You can go and download a copy of this PDF. It's a nice 6-page glossy with pictures, really easy to read. So I don't know if there's any questions in there, but I know I'd like to turn it over to Cindy Johnson to kind of deliver some final thoughts and summary.
Thanks, Jason. What a great presentation. And I don't know that there's much that I can add to let you know how powerful this study is. I want to thank every one of the 73 participants in Clubhouses who answered these long surveys, and also the data collectors at each clubhouse who help people answer the surveys. And I want just to add one word that comes to mind for me about Clubhouse and why it works so well, and that's interdependence. You know, we are all interdependent on each other. And to come to a Clubhouse means you bring your strengths and talents and you share those with others. And in exchange, you get benefit. And that's really what I see as the benefit coming to the Clubhouse, as opposed to the services that you receive. I mean, you know, who doesn't love it when you get a little extra attention from a staff member to help you find the right doctor or a place to live, things like that. But boy, excuse me, it's that day-to-day support, contributing your skills in the Clubhouse that really make the difference. But I wanted to see if anybody had any comments or questions about this presentation.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So, because tomorrow we're handing out, I'm going to be handing out an Excel spreadsheet to help people track their data that we use here. But Jason, I noticed on your slides, one was all of the different diagnoses for comorbidity. I was noticing on the CPQ tab on referrals, it broke it down into intellectual disability, substance abuse, mental health, and other diagnoses. So you have a lot more categories broken down. Were those write-in informations? I wasn't involved in the first part of the intake for new members. And is that second part of the question is, are they going to be doing that moving forward for new clubhouses? Are they going to have to do that first part as well?
So Dan, I'll let Colleen chime in as well, but we showed kind of two different kind of demographic breakdown there, and one of them generated from the CPQ, and the other one, the one I think with the more expansive list, was generated from the folks that went through the SAM MPAI portion of it. And so I apologize, it was a little confusing there because we kind of had two different data sets from the two different portions of our research, and some of them asked very similar questions, but they were asked to two different populations, if you will. One of them was asked to the clubhouses to break down their demographics, and one of them was asked to the individuals that the 76 individuals that we got the individual level data on.
Okay.
But
So,
Dan, we did modify the CPQ to add those the other co-occurring diagnoses.
so
The mental health CPQ had some, and we modified it a little bit more.
So
But
are
still
you
not to
breaking-
the same, it's still not the same list. It's not the same.
So-
To the same extent as the more detailed survey. And
So
we
with
can,
respect to moving forward, I want to make sure that I get these in for tomorrow. So the CPQ from the previous year in 2019, the categories it had was intellectual disability, substance abuse, mental health, and then other diagnoses. Are we going to stick to those four categories, or are you going to try breaking it out more closely?
right now we're sticking to the same four.
Okay.
You know, from my end of things, we're always open to tweaking it again. Just the database developer is pretty expensive. So we just need to figure out where the funding would come from if we went through another, set of modifications or an overhaul. Right now, so if there were 2 or 3 other categories that you wanted to add, I would just say in the description for other, whatever those are, if it was like epilepsy 3% and COPD 2%, you maybe just list them all in that other description with the percentages after, because there's only one other box for that additional diagnoses.
Should I try to use that list that Jason had for that? Like, would you want people to break it down?
If you were going to break it down that detailed, I would say maybe just drop it in a little separate table and email that.
Okay. And then the last thing, just to follow up, same series of questions, all of the intellectual functioning challenges that you had listed there, where did you get that list from? You know, the memory, the cognition, the reasoning, you know, that list.
Yeah. So the functional impairments, that was on the SAM MPAI
Okay.
instrument that we just administered on the individual level. That's not something that we assess as part of the CPQ.
Okay.
So again,
So we don't want.
CPQ is generally looking at kind of more broad scale programmatic data, and that there is some analysis of certain member characteristics, but we
Okay.
generally don't get into that level of detail with the CPQ.
Okay.
Anybody else? So I hope that the Clubhouse directors will join us tomorrow, because everybody is going to be asked to, every Clubhouse is going to be asked to complete the CPQ every year that we can afford money to hire Colleen and her group to administer and analyze the data. And then we're going to require it in 2022 for all IBICA clubhouses. So this is your chance tomorrow to learn the technology behind the CPQ, and you know how it's based in access, how you open up the database, how you export it, how you navigate. And then we'll spend an hour going through each item and answering questions about what does this actually mean, and because I might not be collecting this data already. And then Jessica is going to talk about how she figured out, or maybe didn't figure out, answers to her questions about what each item means. And then Dan is going to show you a spreadsheet of how he actually started collecting that data at Beechwood. And so it'll be a very informative 2 hours. And if you are a director of a clubhouse and you haven't already done the CPQ, I can't recommend highly enough that you participate in those sessions tomorrow, because otherwise you won't have instruction of how to do it, but you'll be expected to do it. So I hope you can join us. It's fun and very time consuming.
It gets easier as you go, because it's
Absolutely.
designed. So some of the information that you put in there, if it doesn't change, then you don't have to re-enter it every time. So for example, if the hours of your work units or your work order day doesn't change, you don't have to re-enter them.
And we'll be going over a completed CPQ from side by side. So you'll get to see kind of the rationale of how we came up with the responses and how sometimes we made a best guess. Okay, Jason, did you want to wrap us up, or do you want?
Yeah, sure. I know we're a little over time, so I just wanted to say thank you again to the clubhouses that participated in this, and to everyone else. I hope you're able to get a sense today just of the impact of this research and what this means going forward for the clubhouse movement. You know, for the very first time, we have university validated research that says Clubhouse has a number of positive research validated impacts on individuals with brain injury. Something that if you step foot into a brain injury clubhouse for any period of time, you've known, but now we actually have research to back it up, and research journal articles to say this is exactly what happens, the positive impact of brain injury clubhouse. And that's going to be huge for our community moving forward. And the ability for us to not only sustain the operation of our clubhouses, but for other communities to get brain injury clubhouses when they need them as well. Thank you.
Great job, Jason and Colleen.
Bye, everybody.
Cindy.
Thank you,
everybody. And just a reminder that we're reconvening at 3:30 for our next session on how your clubhouse can be part of the change for